In John chapter 6, Jesus has given his Eucharistic teaching called the Bread of Life Discourse. And it's shocking. Told in verse 66 that many of his disciples draw back and no longer go about with him. And so Jesus then goes to the 12 and he says, will you also go away? Listen carefully to Simon Peter's response. He says, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life, and we have believed and have come to know that you are the Holy One of God. When Peter says you have the words of eternal life, he's speaking of Jesus' teaching, but he doesn't stop there because his belief about the reliability of Jesus' teaching is inseparable from his belief that you are the Holy One of God, a question of identity. Once you've got the question of identity right, Jesus is who he says he is, then you can follow in good conscience. Jesus says some hard things. He says some things that are confusing, and he also says some things that are challenging, things that are uncomfortable. Like, you don't have to understand why God does everything he does. And more than that, you don't and won't understand everything God is going to do. You can't predict the mind of God. And so if your standard for accepting him is that you can, you're never going to reach it. Instead, you have to see enough. So the relationship of the message and the messenger, I would suggest, is this. On the one hand, Jesus' teaching, along with his miracles, most especially the resurrection, tell us something about his identity. He speaks and acts in a way that points to him being who he says he is, the Son of God. Teaching leads to identity. Once you get identity, that then leads back to how we understand the teaching. Now it's not just, here's a wise man giving me practical advice. Now it's the Son of God, who is God himself, is telling me the nature of reality. Now I'm going to listen to that with a great deal more interest, reverence, respect.